This podcast is brought to you by IWON Foods. IWON Foods sells natural sweeteners that will help you clean up your nutrition label without sacrificing flavor. Head over to iconfoods.com to find out more, and don't forget to mention that the Peas on Moss podcast sent you. Many of you who've known me for a while know that my background is in nutritional science, and after my short military career, I worked as a consulting nutritionist for a fitness center and taught nutrition science in various community college programs both in Colorado and Washington before becoming a student at that very same Seattle Community College. Having a strong baseline in nutrition, food labeling, biochemistry, and community health has informed my work as a research chef and food scientist, and I'm always so curious about the brands that build their core value on nutritional benefits. I even worked for one that espoused the keto diet and was both fascinated and agitated by the nutritional claims made by various food brands, whether competitors or peers. This week, we're diving into the newest food certification and listening to a relatively newcomer to the snacking space, both talking about putting the health needs of consumers first. First up, I interview Alan Greensmith of Monash University, who helps us understand the low FODMAP diet and efforts to manage IBS symptoms. It's a study-based nutritional intervention program designed to help symptom sufferers identify the food types that they're sensitive to and eliminating them. And Monash University has a certification license that participating brands can claim to help consumers know whether their food products do not contain the sensitive ingredients. Alan and I met at the American Food Innovate Summit in Chicago. The summit will be virtual this year, March 29th and 30th. Go to AmericanFoodInnovate.com for details and to check out the speakers.
I'm Alan Greensmith, and I work with Monash University of Melbourne, Australia. And my position is I'm the head of the U.S. commercial effort to bring the low FODMAP diet to the United States.
Well, welcome to the Peas on Moss podcast. As we were saying right before we hit record, it's an important awareness to have, and I'm really glad that you're here to share about this. And you and I are connected through the American Food Innovate Summit. We met both last year and the year before, so in March of 2020 and then February of 2019, and you were here at the APHIS Summit presenting on the FODMAP diet, right?
Yes, that's right. Had a chance to speak from the stage this time as one of the plenary sessions, and we were accompanied by Kellogg's because they're a company that understands and believes in this concept of a low FODMAP diet as a way to help improve GI symptoms for people that are struggling with irritable bowel syndrome. And so we were up at the stage presenting the low FODMAP diet, the history and what it is. And then Kellogg's was an example of a company that is joining us by certifying some of their products as being low in FODMAPs. And I should clarify what FODMAPs are. FODMAPs represent short-chain carbohydrates that are in much of what we eat. And they're fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. And these short-chain carbohydrates can be the cause, oftentimes, in up to 75% of people, can be the cause of the symptoms of irritable bowel syndrome.
Okay, so the F in FODMAP is fermentable, right? So that's the short-chain carbohydrates that get fermented by the bacteria in our intestinal tracts?
Yeah, so it's very interesting. We all eat our food, and after the stomach, the first stop is the small intestine. And FODMAPs are not particularly broken down well or at all. So these short-chain carbohydrates pass rapidly into the large intestine, and they draw a bunch of water. And then the gut bacteria in the large intestine tends to feed on these carbohydrates, and it creates a lot of gas, a lot of bloating, discomfort. And then people with irritable bowel syndrome also have a psychological component to this. They are more sensitive to this feeling of bloating. You've heard this before, there's a gut-brain connection. And these people in particular have this feeling that, oh my gosh, I'm in so much pain. I'm so uncomfortable. I'm so bloated. What is going on?
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so we're talking about the very natural kind of passing of short chain carbohydrates from the small intestine to the large intestine, which draw in water. The bacteria in our large intestine, which are supposed to be there, start to ferment these carbohydrates and can cause bloating for everyone. But people who have irritable bowel syndrome have a more sensitive gut-brain connection and feel worse.
Yeah, I think that's a good description, a good read on that. I am not a medical professional and do not play one on TV, but certainly am experienced in the low FODMAP diet and the science associated with it. So what I would convey is that there are some, for instance, most people, if you have an Italian meal with pasta and garlic and onion and lots of bread, most people will feel bloated and uncomfortable if they've eaten a lot at the end of that meal, because FODMAPs, that's a FODMAP bomb, if you will. Onions and garlic are high in fructans. And of course, breads and pasta are high in fructans. And those offending fructans, although they're very healthy for you, they're prebiotics, they're really good, they're the building blocks of gut health. They also can be difficult for anyone to break down. And so they do often end up into the large intestine, causing bloating and gas. But like you said, in particular, for the folks with IBS, it's worse. It's just a much more extreme feeling and experience. And these short chain carbohydrates like fructose and others can really be an issue. A good illustration, if I might just take a quick one, lactose. Lactose, it's very common for people to struggle with milk, dairy products because of lactose. And it's because lactose is a disaccharide. And if you have lactase, in your body, you can break that down, separating it into two simple sugars, and then the body can easily process it. But that disaccharide tends to pass right into the large intestine and cause some of the symptoms we've talked about. And so that's a good example of a FODMAP, a disaccharide, lactose, that can cause real issues for people and is a very common cause of irritable bowel syndrome.
Very interesting. Okay, so the low FODMAP diet then, by deduction, is a diet that avoids these short chain carbohydrate sources, I assume. What does that mean? Tell us a little bit more about what that diet restriction is.
Yeah, so the important thing to recognize first and foremost is this is not a lifetime diet. You and I can really have talked about that in the past. It's a phase diet is a way to describe it, or a reintroduction type diet. But for the first 2 to 6 weeks, let's say you go to a physician or you've been doing a lot of homework on the internet. And we always recommend that if people think they have IBS symptoms, they should go to a physician. They should go to a medical professional and get a true diagnosis. But unfortunately, only about a third of people with IBS go to the doctor. So we always recommend go see a doctor, get a proper diagnosis. But if you truly have IBS, your physician says, I'd like you to start on the low FODMAP diet. What they're expecting you to do then is for the next 2 to 6 weeks, follow a diet, which you can utilize our app. We have the Monash University FODMAP Diet app, which is the #1 paid medical app in the world. There's almost 1 million people now that have downloaded it, and it has a listing of all the low FODMAP foods, medium FODMAP, high FODMAP. It has over 70 recipes. It has basically a how-to section. And then it also has many of the food brands that we have tested in our laboratory and have proven to be low in FODMAPs. All of that is available in the app. That's how many people will navigate the diet. many will go see a dietitian who's been trained in low FODMAPs. And we've trained over 1,500 dietitians through our online courses. And those dietitians are all listed on the website and in the app, and people will use the app to navigate and find those people. But very quickly, 2 to 6 weeks, low FODMAP diet till the symptoms of IBS subside. Once those symptoms subside, the key thing then is to reintroduce FODMAPs while staying on a low FODMAP diet. You reintroduce one class of FODMAP at a time. And the idea with that is to try and figure out over the course of 6 to 8 weeks which class of FODMAPs, oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, polyols, which class or classes are causing you an issue. Once you know that, and for most people, it's foods that contain fructans, which are chains of fructose, or it's lactose. Those two things are the main offenders. Once people figure that out, they can move to a very broad, healthy diet, reincorporating most of the FODMAPs, just being careful or going with lower portions of the FODMAPs that can cause them their issues. And then most people go on to live a normal, healthy life. And every once in a while have a flare up if there's some onions in their food they didn't know about, or if they're exposed to a FODMAP here or there. Never causes permanent damage, but certainly they can jump right back onto low FODMAP diet so they feel better, and then move back to a broader diet, being careful with the offending or triggering foods.
Let's dig a little bit into food products. Before the coronavirus pandemic shut down, most people were eating a lot of their meals out of the house, or they were buying a lot of packaged foods that helped them kind of shortcut the from-scratch cooking process. I think it's a little different nowadays.
Sure.
But let's talk about the food products that have collaborated with the Monash University to, to get their food products assessed and then possibly be listed in the app itself?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Very excited about, we have many companies that have joined us, big and small. And then we have a bunch of companies right now that are in the process of joining. So the other thing that you were speaking about, how we did our things in the past before COVID-19 and how we're doing it now. One of the most interesting things is been kind of the advent of these companies that will do pre-prepared meals that are low in FODMAP. And there are two companies that come to the top of my mind. One we've worked with extensively, one we're beginning to work with. Modify Health is the one we've worked with for a while, and they have dozens and dozens of meals that can be shipped around the country. They're fresh, and they arrive at someone's home, and it allows people to have a prepared low FODMAP meal, very high quality. They use real chefs, etc. And we've certified the recipes, and we've certified those recipes for those meals so that consumers can trust that they're getting a proven low FODMAP meal. The other company that it does a beautiful job too in this area, which we're beginning to work with, is Epicured, and they're based in New York City and a real innovator in this area. And then in more of the traditional food side, we've got companies like Dr. Shar, which is a very well-known medically associated food company in Europe. They have 120 products certified with us as being low in FODMAPs. Kellogg's, a traditional large company with dozens of brands within or under the umbrella. They have certified many of their iconic cereals that are low in FODMAP. And then companies maybe you would not be familiar with, but they're very important. Ingredion is an example. They're one of the world's largest ingredient makers, and they work with all of the large manufacturers around the world, and they have a couple of ingredients that are high in fiber, low in FODMAP, which make for a good ingredient to include in a product. The other thing they do is they do a pea protein that is a low FODMAP, and pea protein is really one of the hot products right now, particularly for some of the protein shakes and things like that. And so Ingredion puts forward a low FODMAP product that they're recommending and working with companies around the world for inclusion. The final company I would mention is Fody Foods. And if you never heard about them, the starter of Fody Foods is Steven Singer, a tremendously successful entrepreneur. He started Glutino, which really was at the forefront of the whole gluten-free movement. Steven is a serial entrepreneur who started Fody Foods, and Fody Foods is totally dedicated to making nothing but low FODMAP foods. And they have just dozens and dozens of very high quality, excellent sauces and chips and ingredients, like garlic infused olive oils and things like that, tomato sauces that are low FODMAP, but very, very tasty. So I think that gives you a feel for the kind of the universe of companies that have joined us on this adventure.
Wow, that's really interesting. Really a great cross section, but there are a lot of companies who could still be part of it, and some of them are listeners of the show. So how would they start to build out a portfolio of low FODMAP items that either could be listed on the Monash University low FODMAP app, or more importantly, just have an offering as we become more aware of the need to provide safe products for consumers who just can't eat maybe the things that we haven't thought of as being problematic?
That's a terrific question, and I appreciate it because it gives us a chance to step back for a moment and think about maybe a bigger category and then be specific. But you and I talked back in March. We talked about gut health, and gut health is on the minds of consumers, and certainly I can't think of a company that doesn't have some kind of gut health initiative as part of, particularly if you're in any of the fibers or things like that. And so one of the things that I think you and I had touched on is when people think I am looking for gut health, many of those people are actually looking for relief from their symptoms of irritable bowel syndrome. So the big category is gut health. The big piece within that is IBS. And I had touched on this with you before that about 50 million Americans have symptoms of IBS. So again, when people think gut health and think of relief and how can I get my gut in order, many of them are thinking, how can I get over IBS? They just don't know that's what they're thinking, but the research would suggest that's what they're engaged in. So there's a big category here. Many companies want to participate in it. And so how companies have approached us is, hey, you want to be part of the gut health thing. Hey, I understand IBS is a big issue. Hey, I understand that low FODMAPs are an important cause of this common condition. And I understand there are many companies participating. How do I get involved? Well, the best thing is that people can go to our monashfodmap.com, Monash, MONASH, FODMAP, FODMAP.com website. And you'll see it's the world's #1 website of its kind and has all sorts of information on diet and IBS, but also that's where companies can engage with us for how do I participate, how do I get certified, how do I get my products tested. All of that is on the website. And that usually leads to a voice-to-voice conversation with me. And the key thing for us is to learn about the company that wants to work in this area so that we can make suggestions and help them figure out how best to participate. We then do an evaluation of their ingredients. If they want to go forward, we do HPLC carbohydrate testing. We're one of the world's leaders in expertise in carbohydrate testing, and we test for FODMAPs. We report out to the company on what the level of FODMAP is, and if it's low in FODMAP and they want to go forward, we'll do a licensing agreement. And that is a 1 to 3 year agreement where they get the Monash University seal of approval, certified as low FODMAP, which is really the gold standard in this. Consumers around the world know the label. They're looking for the label. We highlight all of those companies in the app and on the website. And then we also work with all of these companies to do a launch. We help them promote. We help them with their materials and the kind of the press releases, et cetera. And then finally, and I apologize for the length of this answer, but it's important answer. Finally, we have a certified partners group that meets about every 6 weeks. It's all the great pillar companies that are working with us, and we come together once a month to talk about best practices, raising awareness of this category, education, and it has been an awesome collaboration of great companies coming together to raise awareness, help consumers, and put the word out there that there's this great class of products that are ready to help, and how we can introduce consumers to the category and to the companies.
When the results come back and you give us the HPLC results and share kind of which items are low FODMAP compliant, yes. Okay, then we would go through licensing or applying the license to the foods that have passed the low FODMAP assessment, right?
Yeah, so this is a very important conversation for us to have, and I appreciate, Kimberly, that you brought this up. First and foremost, we're the science people, right? We're Monash. We have proven scientifically through a rigorous investigation process in many studies that the low FODMAP diet has been shown to help in alleviate the symptoms of IBS in up to 75% of people. We make that claim. That's our job to make that claim. That is not the job of food companies. Food companies are to make products. And so just to take that one step further, for instance, the American College of Gastroenterology, based on the science, recommends the Monash University or the low FODMAP diet as first-line therapy as a way to manage the symptoms of IBS. So certainly on the scientific side, the diet has been clearly proven and is accepted with the medical community as one of the important modes of therapy. On the food side, these companies are putting forward foods that are low in FODMAP. And really, that's all that they're doing. They are not in the process or in the business of making claims, health claims about their food. They're just putting forward low FODMAP foods, and we work with them on statements that are that work within the regulatory framework that convey that this food is low in FODMAPs, which may or may not be helpful in a low FODMAP diet. But we're the ones who are in the science business and in the business of promoting the diet. The food companies are in the business of making excellent, high-quality food, and in this case, foods that happen to also be low in FODMAPs.
Thank you so much for clarifying that. I really appreciate that you understood kind of the weight and question of, are we making a structure function claim here, and the food company itself is not. We're working with Monash University to do that.
Exactly. I mean, it should be, I don't think I need to repeat or go any further other than to say that, we're in the world of science. We want to prove things in the scientific realm. Our goal was to launch the diet, educate the medical side. The medical community recognizes the quality of the science and gives the diet its due recognition. But we are not in the food business. The food business is in the business of putting forward high-quality foods that benefit people nutritionally. And some of those foods, if they would like to join us, if they're low in FODMAP, could be considered for low FODMAP certification through Monash University.
This is such a fascinating diet. It's not one that I studied when I was going through my nutrition science training. Truly, and this will probably date me a little bit, but when we went through our orientations in nutrition, food sensitivities were considered serious for some individuals, but not very common. And that tone has certainly changed in the decades since then. And so it's interesting to hear about the FODMAP, to see awareness increase. You have a lot of work ahead of you, though. There's a whole lot of marketing and awareness to be had.
Yeah. So, you're right. And the challenge for us is that although Monash is a gigantic university, 75,000 students, one of the leading research universities in the world, invented in vitro fertilization, for instance. There's a wonderful Monash innovation. The car safety belt is a Monash innovation. The university is located in Australia. And although in the rest of the world, let's say the English-speaking countries in the rest of the world, the diet has been accepted pretty readily because you have a single payer system in those countries. And because of that, there are limited resources. So oftentimes it feels like people are looking for options that are not necessarily medicine options. Whereas here in the United States, we have a multiple payer system. We have, historically at least, more resources. And oftentimes we have looked to medication to be the answer, not necessarily some of the other innovations. That's changing as resources become tighter and tighter and people are looking for non-pharmaceutical interventions. The one thing I would comment on is that diet has been shown to work in up to 75% of people with IBS symptoms, whereas none of the medications have been shown to have the same rate of success. So I just think it's a matter of time. We are a university. We're limited in our promotional efforts, but we're doing everything we can to raise awareness through the scientific community, to partner with patient organizations, patient communities, and also to work with the food industry to create options for people that want to follow the diet. So we're a nonprofit. We're limited in our outreach and our resources, but we feel like we're doing the work of angels. And certainly over time, we have made progress. 2018 was a big deal when the American College of Gastroenterology recommended the diet as a first-line therapy and really a great place to start for IBS.
It will be interesting to see whether this food certification program picks up. Notable big brands are already participating, and I've seen low FODMAP product placements on end caps and next to like products in the center of the store at health food stores. If a large retailer with national grocery distribution took on the products and marketed them, there would be some significant growth.
Peas on Moss will be right back.
Can you believe we've been broadcasting for over 4 years? The podcast has appreciated nearly 40,000 downloads, and the website itself has 1,000 followers and just under 500 direct subscribers. And in fact, social media outlets have twice that active engagement on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. With just 2 corporate sponsors and media partnerships, Peas on Moss has grown to have a broader outreach and access to exclusive innovation and food trade summits. It's small, but the podcast and education material have reached food business entrepreneurs, restaurant chefs, food science and culinology students, product developers, and businesses that supply food and ingredients to this multi-billion-dollar industry. Would you support Peas on Moss? I am looking for core sponsors who are seeking ways to connect with product developers through dynamic conversations set up on podcasts. Speakers and advertisers have gained clients by being heard on Peas on Moss, and I want to keep the network and relationships going. With your annual sponsorship commitment, you'll help the podcast keep going by contributing towards the cost of hosting the show. You're also helping us increase awareness of food manufacturing, food science, and culinology, supporting both product development and awareness of the industry at large. Along with it, your business will benefit from brand awareness in media and have access to a different audience than other advertising methods, and have room to share more information than typical print advertisements. Your presence is also evergreen, as these episodes are posted permanently on the website and available for streaming on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Stitcher. Please contact Kimberly today to become part of this podcast movement. Visit peasonmoss.com and click on the sponsor of the show for details.
Welcome back to Peas on Moss.
Our next guest has been stirring up conversations on LinkedIn since January 2020, and he's the founder of IWON Organics, a brand new snack brand that is taking the category by storm. From his daily salesperson insight posts to candid comments about the challenges of entrepreneurship, Mark Samuel has quickly risen to the top of food brand influencer categories comparable to some of the leaders of brands like Kind. I look forward to reading his posts because they always invite me to approach the daily business game differently, especially being newer in the business development role. Mark has already started frequent video chats with other food brand founders and branding agencies to help support and educate these hustlers. We chatted way back in April or May, but who can really remember with COVID days? And I'm excited to finally post this episode. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Peas on Moss podcast. It's a podcast designed to talk to other people in the food industry. I'm a research chef by training and by a lot of career moves. And I'm so excited about our industry and about how we bring high quality product to the market that I started a podcast, initially recording stories with chefs that I worked for, chefs that I'd met, and it grew as I grew into the food industry. So learning about other organizations, meeting incredible entrepreneurs like yourself. And really, I just put the show out there for folks to get a deeper dive to learn about other businesses, other brands. I always learn something from the guests that I try to apply to my career immediately. So thank you in advance for being that person and participating in this adventure.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
So tell me about IWON Organics. Start with the name. I've looked on your website to see how you got to the acronym. I'd love to hear that evolution.
Sure. Yeah, it stands for I'm winning on nutrition. The play on the word win could go 100 different ways, and I'm just more of a positive, optimistic spirit. So it really fits, with me, and I want to carry that into the brand and carry it into the consumers that adopt us over time. The nutrition piece of it is the core of our company and the core of our products and what we'll be putting out into the market. We're nutrition based in the fact that we make our snacks from real foods like peas and brown rice. And we have balanced nutritional profiles, in our snacks with protein and fiber and healthy fats and carbohydrates. So it's all related to nutrition and the idea of winning when it comes to food choices. Because the piece that is or has always been missing is with consumers choosing food or seeing all of these diets come down their feed, is that they never really feel like they are winning when it comes to food choices. So we're trying to turn the table when it comes to that.
Talk to me about then the evolution of why you're focusing on nutrition. There are other better for you snacks out there. There are other nutrition experts. So what was it that you felt was missing, and how are you filling that need?
Sure, that's a good question. I think first we'd say there's other nutrition experts. I think that's almost overstated, not by you, but just by how we are marketed to. Everybody's a nutrition expert these days, right? I also think it's fueled by money most of the time. So when we see these new diets come sort of into our lives, it's often fueled by those that have some sort of ROI relationship to it. And that's my own opinion, of course, but I'm a true believer in that. And you are correct, though, that there are other better for you options out there. And I'm a big fan of that. Better for you, though, can be ambiguous and oftentimes has been, when we're dealing with sugar or not sugar or sugar alcohols or the use of words like lower to no carbohydrate as now being a healthier option. I think we are a majority of consumers are confused most of the time. And that's probably the biggest problem that we've always had and may continue to have until the real education is put out there and consumers are provided messaging or real evidence of what or how we should be eating. And with that said, I'm just a 100% advocate all-in advocate on balanced nutrition, on foods, and removing IWON Organics, for instance, just in terms of snacking. Just dense, real foods is the way to go. All of the time, or at least most of the time. I'm also a big believer in the 15 to 20% rule of cheat meals and having those things that are indulgent. I'm okay with that. But a majority of the time, we need to be eating real dense foods with proteins and fats and carbohydrates, the healthy ones, the ones we know what they are. And then when it comes to snacking and the categories that we're in, oftentimes I think the consumers really do know which ones are truly better for you than others. They should be real ingredients, things that you've actually seen before, you've read before, you can read it. Like green peas. I'm just giving a little shout out to sort of what we do, or navy beans, which is what's an ingredient in our snacks. Things that provide your body the nutrition that it needs to not only fuel you through the day, but just provide you strong immunity, which is a good key word in what we're dealing with today and what we'll need to deal with moving forward.
One of the big pieces that I saw from your website is the careful and conscious selection of the ingredients in the puff snack itself, and then into the seasonings and flavors that you apply to those snacks, really focusing on meeting the consumer where they're at. They want healthy food, but we also want to snack. And so it looked like what I saw from your website is really understanding that we can't just ask people to jump into a full about face on their diet necessarily. We need to find ways to serve them and the habits that they have and help step them towards more and more wins.
Now you nailed it. And it's to the core of what we're doing and where we're going as a company. I think in today's environment, it's just a really good point to make, because it's what's happening. If you were to go into the salty snack aisle and hear about the lift in sales because of the crisis that we're dealing with and the stay-at-home mandate, the brands that are winning right now are the legacy salty snack brands, like the Frito-Lays of the world, right? When previous to this, they were losing a little bit of market share from what we sort of read about, due to the emerging better for you brands, right, that are coming into the space. But, if you took a snapshot over the last 4 weeks, we're noticing that sort of has flipped. And that goes to the core of your question and the reason why. We, in a time of, I could use the word emergency, but when we're feeling down or we are overly stressed out, we oftentimes go to the things that make us feel better, right? And I don't shy away from the fact that seeing a Doritos label or a Frito-Lay's label in your cabinet isn't going to sort of not only make you feel a little bit better, but the taste and texture and all those good things you remember as a kid kind of brings you back down, and not the physical way, just it settles you a little bit. And I totally understand why there's lift there. At the same time, there's lift there because they taste great. I mean, another thing I don't shy away with, and you have to be really realistic with why people choose those products, right? Why they may choose an unhealthier option is they taste great. Who doesn't love a Cheeto, right? I mean, I don't personally eat those because they're not in my nutritional profile of what I want to put in my body. But, I understand why consumers eat them. They're delicious. So what we do at IWON Organics is we just try to flip the script. We lead in with the idea that we can create, even match the taste, texture profiles of those leading legacy brands. The big difference is we'll hit you with all the nutritional benefits. And so the latter is really what the differentiating factor is for us. We will hit you with organic certified ingredients made from real foods like green peas and brown rice, and we'll provide those higher levels that are incomparable in the set. that are higher in proteins and the fibers. And so when you put those two together, the big difference in what will take some time is just education and trial. Without a doubt, it's going to take us time to continue to market the world, as they say, but continue to market our consumers one at a time, if it has to be, and say, hey, try these. So trial comes into play. It's a big piece of this. And once they've had them, and we have proof of that, they will make the change. But it takes a lot of time, money, effort, and energy to continue to do that one customer at a time. But we're focused and we're ready to do that.
So let's talk about the entrepreneurship side of this a bit. The timing of, at least when I became aware of IWON Organics, is, I think it was early February or end of January. And the world looked fairly normal at the time, and it looked like you were teeing up a lot of really aggressive launches into several different segments. You don't have to fast forward very far, and the world kind of went upside down, starting kind of with the domino of Expo West eventually getting canceled, and everybody kind of freezing. There seemed to be a little bit of fight and flight and all of that. And your messaging through LinkedIn primarily ran counter to so much of what was getting posted out there. And I really wanted to highlight that, because that's really what drew us into conversation with each other, was you're choosing in the middle of a starting launch to show up so differently than the rest of the industry is going. Could you talk to us about a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. I don't know exactly what the reference is, but I could say what I'm doing as far as who I am as an individual and what you may be, seeing or perceiving from that. I'm just trying to wake up every day, as everybody is, and being as optimistic as possible, even though I'm getting punched in my face, right? Like anybody who really knows me, I'm the same, 5 best friends since I was 5 years old, right? They'll always say the same thing. I'm as transparent as it's going to get, for better or worse, right? And I think, what I've tried to do, or what I'm trying to do, is I'm okay to share that transparency online. And I hope it helps. I hope it helps the brand. I hope it helps other people mostly. That's what the main intent is. So that may be me sharing my optimism as much as I possibly can. You also will see me sharing things that could be personal and maybe a little bit of a what I consider a downer. But the downer is something that is very relatable. Again, I kind of go back to that whole, punch in the face thing. I'm dealing with the same things that many are right now, even though it looks, oh, wow, these guys are growing. And this guy, Mark, he's keeping it pretty positive over here. But again, I don't shy away from saying I've got a couple kids, in the house. It's complete chaos. I try to get my workouts in the morning. It's been completely changed. I took my kid with me on a little jog this morning. I'm erratic, at some cases. The kids have been put in their room probably a few more times than normal. Like people who hear me go, oh, good. I didn't know if I was the only one. No, you're not. I am you. So the only difference is that I do want to try to uplift and keep some optimism going out there, because I am a total optimist. We are absolutely 100%, without a doubt, going to get through the shit that we're in right now. Hands down. It may take a little bit longer than even I first anticipated. And then in keeping with what is the honesty behind it, even once it settles, there is going to be a blowback or a softening of some sort that will continue for some time as consumers and people and our lives try to get back to the norm of whatever that is, it will take time for that to occur. But at the same time, it will. So I try to paint that as much as I possibly can. I also try to put my head down and keep moving forward, forging ahead on different initiatives that I had in the pipeline, and that I'm not going to stop from proceeding with just because what's happening right now.
And I think that's the key. And you're right. It was a holistic way of your approach. Whether that's insights and learnings for salespeople, which I've taken very much to heart as I've just started a sales role and don't know all of the tools in the toolbox yet. So it's your insights about the industry, but it's also your transparency of, this is freaking challenging right now. And it's not ideal. And there are days that I wish I could have responded better, or if this comes up again, I will respond better because now I'm learning from this. I think it's that attitude that you're putting that information out there, but you've managed to draw a lesson from all of this, and you've shared those lessons with those of us through LinkedIn, and hopefully with your team too. I hope they feel encouraged, because I find your posts encouraging even while they're transparent and we're all getting punched in the face. So it's nice to see someone get punched, but also talk about it and how we've learned from it.
Well, I appreciate it. That is the intent, right? It's to touch as many people. If it's one person, fantastic. If it's 20, even better. And I know I actually have my own sort of internal results, because I do get messages, as you can imagine, direct ones, and they're pretty awesome about some of my posts and things like that are relatable. And as far as my team, we have a small, really super dedicated, all-in team, and I'm blessed by that. And we treat it that way. We all play, a position here. I like to talk about it like getting out into the football field, or running out to the baseball, the baseball field, and all taking our positions each day. It's the same thing with us. 100% transparency. I talk to them, not just every day, but each week is often a little small recap that I give them that basically just says, everything's all good, right? We're all good here, everybody. And here's why, and here's what we're doing next week. And here, let's continue to make it happen. That will win with a lot of people. And I hope others are doing that. Some may say that's a great leadership characteristic. I look at it just more of like you use the word holistic. I just think it's just a real thing to do. The more you can be honest with people and put out your sort of your vibe, your real true to the core vibe with others, that is something that you can take with you in a lot of really successful opportunities.
Well, let's talk about it when things aren't all good. Some businesses have really been struggling right now, and I'm thinking about entrepreneurs and friends of mine who have found their incomes dramatically affected by the acute reactions to COVID in the U.S. and internationally. How would you suggest navigating transparency and wanting to message to your teams, to your customers, potentially to your stakeholders in a transparent way that doesn't seem all doom and gloom, but it isn't falsely optimistic, without regard to facts? How would you suggest navigating that?
That's a great question. You just you don't really navigate it. I guess that would be my suggestion. You're just staying true to what is happening right now. And I guess the best example would be, we do have a small group of investors, mainly friends and family. So when they get an update from me, specifically one right when this was all kind of coming about, I knew it was a necessary time to send an update specific to it, even though I had previously just did one, saying this is what's happening right now. And sort of per my last comments, saying there's going to be a softening of some sort. Even for our company, a lot of people say that the snack business or food business may have a spike right now. Well, I could say that that's not for everybody. I kind of made the point before. The legacy brands are, and then of course, in the toiletry stuff that you hear about, that people are, making, sort of the true comments about it in the toiletry sector. But in the food and the food and snacking categories, again, the legacy lower cost options are kind of the ones getting the big lift. For instance, we had trouble restocking our product at some of our core retailers because they sort of had to pick and choose which stuff they were going to be bringing in. So we saw some of the lulls there, and that's what you have to talk about. So it's not navigating, it's transparency that will be the thing that you have to lean into extremely hard right now. And then you can continue to keep those updates going. So, another month from now, the same thing has to happen. You have to say, this is exactly what's happened. We had an opportunity for a new retailer that has now gotten pushed back 60 days. And the truth behind that is you don't know if that 60 days is really set in stone, because you don't know with regards to the blowback of, and the softening of all this when it finally does subside. How long is that really going to last?
Well, you're launching into new retailers right now, and the challenge du jour for the last couple of weeks has been getting toilet paper and other quote unquote essentials. How are you finding calling on them? Had you already had a lot of these relationships teed up, and so it's a matter of pipeline fill, or are you and the team still also knocking on doors?
It's the latter. And that's a great question. I just got off the call this morning with our head of sales, and the main theme for us is something, and it's something I almost say it every day. Let's go and find a win today. People may take that from me or use it already, or, more power to you. That's how I talk. I talk about putting wins on the board. And I think that's just such a direct, useful, could be a cliche comment, but it's just how you should be thinking. It should be the mode you're in. And we do that. So an update was this morning. We did finally get a retailer perspective that we had, a prospect that we already had in the pipe that did get pushed back a few weeks because of this. But we finally got them on the phone this morning, and it was a great call. And we believe that we will be able to get activated there probably in about 60 days. So that's a win for us. And behind that, it is just to continue to do that. One more example actually is another key retailer that we had positioned for, for a meeting, and truly what we believed would have been, we would have been in their reset. We got pushed back again because of this, but we were respectful, but we did stay on it. We did stay on the follow-ups, and we just knew that timing, like everything, would be key to continuing to at least push our, sort of processes along the way here while all this is going on. And we just got, some positive feedback from that conversation too. So again, we chalk it up as saying, great win for the day. And that's how we look at things. We recognize, we'd like to say, let's have business as usual. Let's do business as usual. But we are also very respectful and understanding of the current situation. So we just treat it and work it a little bit different. We lean in heavily on the sort of the empathy piece to it. and we make sure we're being respectful on our communication.
Wow, some key lessons in there, empathy, sympathy, respect. Those skills or habits to lead with aren't just for kind of tense environments. They're good skills to have forever, I would argue. When I left the military, I felt like I had missed out on chunks of life because, peers who were my age were in these advanced levels of their work, and I was just getting out and in the entry level roles, and I felt like I was older than the younger folks, the peers in those roles, and I felt like I'd wasted all of that time. And I've spoken to other entrepreneurs who also sometimes say, yeah, I felt like I'd wasted this time and now I'm here and I'm finally in my passion, but I've missed a decade. And I think flipping the script, kind of taking your phrase from earlier, is looking at, no, those times weren't wasted. You had to have that time to get sharpened, to get strengthened, to learn who you are as a contributor, as an adult, as a professional, so that you could be the type of leader you are today. And if you'd skipped any of those steps, if you'd missed out on that heartbreak, you wouldn't be able to respond in a more emotionally mature way today. What do you think?
Oh, that's a certainty. I think everybody's path looks a little bit different, and that's why you have to really stay focused on the things that you have control over. It's very easy for an entrepreneur or somebody who believes that they are one, they want to start a company, to look at the varied roadmaps of different startups or those founders that were involved with it, because they're so skewed. From one end of the spectrum, that's what I'm hopeful that I can do on this new Zoomcast that I'm going to be doing, and I did the first one yesterday. But it's kind of to share all this as for really the smaller brands, the ones that don't really get a lot of the realness from the startups that have to do with how difficult is it? What should I be prepared for? What's the road? What does this road look like? Because from one end of the spectrum, it's ABC company raised $5 million pre-revenue. Well, that is an anomaly. We read about it, and it's a highlight in the publications, and it's discouraging. I don't, again, I guess I'm speaking for myself, but it's probably for a lot of people, because the majority of those that want to start something that they're passionate about, they kind of look closer to me. I mean, again, they look at my resume and they go, oh, maybe, he's able to do this, that, and the other. But no, I'm just a normal, the normal dude, right? We don't have private equity money in our business. We don't have venture money in this business. I've gone out there and had to raise, money and really ask, right? This is what I want to do. So I get it. But again, there's that one side to the right where you get all these headlines, and the smaller guy is saying, or gal is saying, how did they do that? Well, why can't I do that? Right. And here's the reality that's a small number of people who are able to do that. And it's most likely because they had a track record, right? So kudos to them. This isn't a disparaging. It's a kudos. It's just reality. Kudos to them. They're getting big money without really showing face yet, because they've already done it. They've already provided somebody or a company, an investment firm, an ROI. So it's easier to finance or to invest in something like that. Now, let me go to the other end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is just the guy or gal who has to bootstrap, has to, wait, I don't have any money. Maybe my mom is going to invest $10,000, or I've got a really successful, right? And I believe it, since they know me and I'm a good person. And if I have a pretty decent plan in place, they'll give me $25,000 to start this. And the latter is very difficult because you don't have any money to spare. And the thing is, it's expensive. This business is, at least in CPG, you're talking about food and beverage, it's an expensive business. And if anybody tells you otherwise and that you can, if you really bootstrap, and well, that's not reality. I get it, and the message sounds so amazing, and I'm totally into it, and I want that to be the truth, but it's sort of not. You can bootstrap and maybe take a product and figure out how to get it off the ground in a limited number and go to your local stores and sell it and see if it has see if it has legs, maybe go to a farmer's market. Like, yes, you can, but that's a long road. And so I think going back to your point of there is no straight line. Because if you think about those two spheres that I just gave you, they're so far apart, yet there are so many different options or different storylines in between that. And so if you think about that, you may fall closer to the right or you may fall closer to the left. But either way, there's going to be this very windy road that you are going to deal with. And if you've never really been in the trenches before, like me, I mean, been in those trenches before, I've been in the wars, then it will be a lot more difficult to be successful in these types of ventures.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, especially for those who are entrepreneurs from other segments who come into the food world. It's a different language. It can feel a bit clicked. I don't know. Where, the networks might feel closed at the start. I don't know if that's what your experience was. And then you're in suddenly. And then when you're in like Flynn, and all the doors seem to open to certain groups. And then you still have to find those inner circles and everything. But you're right that it's if you wanted to find a low barrier to entry industry, I don't know that CPG is it. And yet the need is there for high quality food across the segments. I personally am passionate about snacks. That's the category I work in.
You're correct.
Yeah. We need new blood.
And the clicky thing, again, I don't know what the word would be. I would just say it does feel as though it's difficult for the majority to get the opportunity that the minority does. And, as I kind of say, with a little bit of a nudge and a smile is life sucks sometimes. So suck it up, right? Yeah. And I wish there was a better answer, but at least it's coming from me. So those that are listening to this, they go, I'm telling you, I am you. You are me, right? Mm-hmm. And so I want that to be, though, with, I'm kind of doing this. You can't see me. I'm doing the little nudge thing. I'm doing it with all the encouragement in the world that it's okay. Don't pay attention or try not to. I know it's difficult to the things that you don't have control over. That's a very, very key piece to the magic of trying to be successful or working down that path, that windy road. Don't pay attention or be focused on the things that you don't have control over. That is very important.
Yeah. I mean, the key lessons I'm getting from you is have transparency. Don't try to navigate around something. Just approach it, tackle it, call it what it is. Embrace the suck is what I actually wrote down, which is something I learned from military days. Life sucks, and sometimes you have to just suck it up. And then don't waste your brain cells on things you can't control. Focus on the right things.
That's correct.
Wow. What a path you've been on. I'm excited to see your products out in our stores as they slowly get through the pipeline. That's great. Well, thank you so much for just choosing to be a transparent and strong voice through all of this. I really appreciate that you've started the Zoomcasts for small business owners who are just like, oh my word, what timing? And that you're leading with that transparency, whether it's did you get up and do your workout? Are you facing the world with the right mentality this morning to, okay, got to make our numbers. We've got to still survive this and keep standing and fighting, recognizing how hard this is right now. I just appreciate just how you're choosing to be there and still pursuing the dream, the mission, and the vision for the product. Consumers' needs haven't changed in the sense of needing nutritional support. How we buy might be a little different for the next couple of months, but our needs are still there. So thank you.
I appreciate you having me on.
There is very much a place for nutrition health focused brands, and COVID pandemic and sheltering in place behaviors have turned up the scrutiny. Food Navigator reported on a recent Hartman Group publication that revealed that 2021 consumers will be seeking more resiliency from the food products they choose, helping them boost their own health and wellness goals. IRI commentary also backed up the observation that consumers are seeking more nutritional products while also sprinkling in indulgence. So, as you help your brands develop for 21 and 22 launches, are you considering health and wellness concepts? Is there an intersection between indulgent and nutritional, or are those two circles too far apart to cross over? Thank you so much for listening to the Peas on Moss podcast today. The show can't happen without people like you, and I hope it continues to bring you value. Special thanks to Moon Palace Productions for editing, to Icon Foods and Trace Gaines for sponsoring in 2020, and to my Patreon patrons, and to the podcast guests who chose to share their stories and expertise with us. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider becoming a corporate or private sponsor for 2021. 2020 hasn't been an easy year, and I would love to continue producing the show in 2021. Would you help? Visit peasonmoss.com to get details, or look for Peas on Moss on Patreon. Thank you so much for listening to the show, and see you next time.